afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Power-packed session from Mr. Shiv Khera. I'm sure most of us really enjoyed learning some of the fundamentals that he covered. I'll just wait for everybody to settle down and then get started. I'm going to kick off this next session, which is a panel discussion, and I'm going to share a little bit of insight with you, 10 minutes, and then I will invite Pooja over to get us started with a panel discussion. I know we are running a little behind, so this will go quickly. While people at the back move out, can I just quickly ask a question? How many people are working in L&D and HR? Quick show of hands. Okay, so maybe 80% of you are working in L&D and HR. So I'm going to share a few insights of what we are seeing happening around the world. Hopefully, this will be interesting. And I've been told many, many times, don't start a presentation with a data-heavy slide, especially if you're speaking after Mr. Shiv Khera, but I don't listen. So here goes. This is a slide which is from before the pandemic. This is a slide which has some research from Oxford University. The font is a little small, so I'll read out what the key message on the slide is. Automation has been coming for a while. You'll see on the x-axis, automation has been coming for a while. And on the y-axis is the level of skills that different jobs have, right? So on the right axis, you will see if you were a cashier in a bank, if you were a picker in a warehouse, right? These are the low skilled jobs. While if you are an IT manager, a finance manager, a general manager, an L&D manager, these are the jobs which have high wages and high skills. And this is pre-pandemic. This is a study from 2017, and we were hearing that low-skilled jobs are at the risk of automation. One of the biggest things that all of us have seen in the last 6 months is generative AI came in. But even before generative AI came in, a lot of people in agriculture, banking, etc., were saying, look, I'm going to build knowledge, skills, credentials, and try and move to jobs on the top left. When generative AI came in, what happened was that high-skilled jobs have come under the risk of automation as well, right? Which means many of us in this room are possibly wondering that, look, how will generative AI change our jobs? And we've been doing a little bit of work thinking about what this might mean. ChatGPT founder, which is OpenAI, and University of Pennsylvania did a study very recently. And basically, and there are lots of numbers here, but basically it says that for most of us, our jobs are going to change very, very rapidly. And one might think that this is going to happen only in the US and in Europe, but reality is that this is happening in India as well. 22% of jobs are likely to change very, very significantly. Now, because we are an education company, we looked at, earlier, if you had lesser levels of education, chances that you were going to get impacted by technology were higher, right? So this is in ascending order, no formal education, high school diploma. Your job was going to get impacted a lot more earlier. But now with exposure to GPT-4 models, what we are seeing is that if you have a college degree or no college degree, if you have a bachelor's degree, if you have a master's degree, chances are that your job is going to get impacted, and that has gone up a lot more. Now, when I saw this, and I think this is a McKinsey study for 3-4 months ago, I said, look, I must take courses on generative AI because I need to build my own skills because my job is going to change. And many L&D HR professionals in the room are probably wondering, how do you think about learning for your employees? How do you think about learning for your colleagues? But a good question to think about is, what are you doing about your skills? Have you thought about your own generative AI skills and how it might change your job? And have you started to build some skills around that? The other thing, and we heard a lot of this from Mr. Shiv Khera, is in an era where technology is evolving so very quickly, actually human skills are becoming even more important. And I won't repeat all of this because we heard this from him. But interpersonal skills, self-leadership, cognitive, and even digital skills are actually becoming even more important. And I'll call out a little bit of what we are seeing in this. What is least likely to get automated are things like empathy, negotiation, problem solving, active listening, digital collaboration, and so on and so forth. Top predictors of higher income, which might interest a lot of people, right? So self-confidence, the ability to adapt, and so on and so forth. And then it goes on to predict job satisfaction and other related topics. Now, the interesting thing is, and I was speaking to my co-panelists earlier, that along with this technology change that we are seeing, we're also getting to a stage where in different industries, what is the nature of remote work and how is it going to play out is getting more or less established, right? On top, you'll see on the right-hand side, tech, information, media. 40% of companies and employees are continuing to work remotely after the pandemic. And we'll hear from Ina from Tata Communications in a little bit. They're probably in that kind of a bucket. And at the bottom, you'll see manufacturing, 11%, where most people are back in offices, in factories, etc. And we'll hear from Vidisha from Wellspun Group later, who are a big manufacturing company, that they are closer to that. So, three things I've said so far. Technology skills continuing to change. It is important to think about these skills. Not just for your colleagues and your employees, but for you yourself and what are you thinking about your skills. Second, human skills possibly becoming more important. We heard a lot of that from Mr. Khera. And third, the phenomena of remote work and how do you continue to engage people in an era which is something like that. And I think Ruchi said this earlier in the morning, on LinkedIn, this is the data which is coming out, that the job postings of remote jobs have been increasing, which is the darker blue bar. But what's interesting is the number of applications for remote jobs have gone up 4x. So a lot of people have actually been wanting to work in remote work. My company is fully remote, and I was sharing with my co-panelists earlier that pre-pandemic, 1/3 of our team was women, but now because of remote work, 50% of our team at Coursera India is women, because women can continue to work in jobs if you're able to offer remote jobs as well. So along with thinking about learning, how are companies thinking about what matters to you from a remote working standpoint? I'll skip through a little bit in the interest of time so that we can get into the conversation. Now, given all of this, I'll share a little bit of quickly what's happening in the world of online learning. Many of you probably know Coursera is a fairly large platform. Crores of people come to Coursera. Hundreds of institutions create content and consume content on the Coursera platform as well. Now, one of the things that we've seen, which is quite simple, is if you're in a company and we have short-form learning, many of us call that learning in the flow of work. We've seen usually 70% of employees in a company want to start with what is called short-form learning. And 30% of employees want to start with deep learning, where you want to spend 50 hours, 100 hours usually thinking about deep learning skills. It's probably helpful as you think about your learning strategies in your companies. And the other thing which I'll share very quickly is industry, not just as an employer, as a educator has become extremely important as well. And over the years, we've seen that professional certificates, which is companies like Google and Salesforce and IBM teaching high in-demand subjects, have become extremely important. These courses have been taken by close to 6 million people worldwide. So as you're thinking about your L&D strategies, not just thinking about subject matter experts, not just thinking about universities teaching, but companies and content coming from companies has become extremely important. I know our panel is supposed to be on generative AI. In the interest of time, I'm not going to play the video that we were planning to play, but ChatGPT is getting integrated into learning as well. And the intent is to be able to say, how do we personalize learning? How do we give everybody an on-demand coach so that learning becomes interactive as well? I'm not going to get into the details, but maybe later in the conversation, we can talk about this. Maybe I can invite Pooja up to get us started with the panel, and I'll pause with that. Thank you so much.
So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this exciting journey into the boundless world of generative AI, AR, and VR. Thank you, Raga, for taking us to this landmark shift that will reshape our lives and industries like never before. Now, as we reflect on what we've learned, let's take a moment to appreciate the sheer originality and innovation that goes into developing these cutting-edge technologies. Generative AI, AR, and VR are no more buzzwords. They are a doorway to infinite possibilities. With that, let's begin the critical dialogue, and I can promise you this will be the crispiest panel discussion you would have ever sat through. So, Vidisha, I'll get you first. Share the overview with us how the business world is evolving. We know hybrid working, we know skills, priorities have changed. What else are the triggers that are changing the business world, and how is that impacting workforce learning?
Thank you for that, Pooja, and I think lovely audience, good to see a full house and pleasure to be here in Gurgaon. I heard a lot of rumors about the rains, but finally I made it and there's not a drop of rain. So lovely to be here and lovely audience. So coming back to your question, I think for us, I remember, when we started way back in LNOD, what we used to measure at that point was completion hours, how many people, and I think at that point, IT, tech, digitization was only something that the tech department had to worry about. But as we've progressed over the last decade, I think one of the biggest shifts that we've seen that it is never a problem of the IT and tech team, okay? Whether you are in HR, whether you're in supply chain, commercial, procurement, marketing, name it, any department, any function. Today, technology, digitization is and must be a part of how you think, breathe, because that is where the future lies. In fact, within WellSpan, we do a whole lot of work in terms of looking at skilling outcomes, looking at capability building, and outcome-based learning and interventions, and not really about how many people are on a platform. So I think the major shift that we've seen over the last decade and now is that today when people talk about skilling, they're talking about relevance. They're talking about, say, how is this skill or this learning platform or this learning intervention going to propel my career, right? How is this concept of generative AI, ChatGPT, it's not something that I can just leave it to IT to worry about, but how do I transfer this in my department, in my function, and in my role? And I think there is a sense of FOMO, if I may call it, that if you're not updated, you will miss out on your career growth, you will miss out on opportunities, because today, technology is not going to take away our jobs, but it's going to amplify what we do, leave us more room and space to actually do strategic work. I was listening to Raghav when you said skills like empathy, negotiation, which actually have to be done by human beings, and the transactions, the intelligence work, which can be outsourced to technology, is what will be leveraged. So I think, yes, to sum it up, technology was outsourced to IT earlier, but right now it's very much a part of our lives. And if we are not integrating it, if we are not working with it, we are going to be left behind.
Great. So Ina, Raghav mentioned that they are already using generative AI technology to personalize, to customize the content and the experience and the outcome. How are you using generative AI technologies at Tata Communications?
Sure. I think before I get to the Gen AI question, we are a tech company, Tata Communications, and over the last 4 years, we've seen the business scenario changing drastically, right? We've seen the Great Reset wave just coming out after the pandemic, and we've seen companies struggling with whether they want to call people back fully to work, or they're adopting hybrid. And then, of course, business models changing, companies getting disrupted. What we realized was that the quickest way or the best way to keep abreast with such change is essentially to look inwards and develop your employees through contextualized learning journeys and giving them differentiated experiences. Now, what we've seen as a trend is from the business leaders and the top leadership is that on one side, they're asking for business outcome-oriented programs. And on the other hand side, we had no choice, but to adopt the platform strategy, purely because, we sell digital transformation to our customers, so we had to mirror that internally. So we had a little bit of a headway in making sure that that digital transformation reflected in L&D as well as in HR. So we had a platform strategy that helped us drive scale, right? Scale and personalization with AI at its core. And today we've adopted a value-based, value-driven L&D strategy, where on one hand side, we are, through our platforms, we are making personalized journeys available to our employees. And on the other hand side, we are focusing on, highly contextualized learning programs which cover all elements of learning and which cater to current or future business skills. So it's sort of given us very good results. Our learning percentages have increased 3x. Our people movements, the career mobility has increased 3 to 5%. And of course, in the hybrid state of work, this is coming in very handy. So, it's no longer the future, right? The future is here as we are experiencing it. This has pretty much become baseline. Now, when it comes to Gen AI, I think the focus that businesses have is largely on using Gen AI for, let's say, financial modeling, detecting fraud, software, coding. And, I was reading a lot of research articles. I believe that the market today is of 8 billion across the world, and it will grow to 126 billion in just the next 7 years. And companies like OpenAI, Google, and a couple of others are looking to invest 4 trillion into ChatGPT, distinct use cases. So obviously, it is definitely a very exciting space, a very disruptive space. When it comes to learning, obviously, given the technology, I see a lot of use cases for content generation as well as learning bots. In fact, Raghav spoke about Coursera Coach, where we've partnered with them to do a pilot in Tata Communications on how we can best leverage that. But having said that, the general trend is that we haven't, like many companies, we haven't been able to yet identify very distinct use cases beyond what I mentioned, because we are still in the experimenting stage.
Those are really some numbers, and maybe Raghav can help us with some use cases because they have already adopted Gen AI technologies for content.
Yeah, and I think some of the things that we are saying, right, I think there are two broad trends that we're all talking about. Firstly, for almost every company, technology is now the business. It is not a department or anything, right? Tata Communications is a technology company. Wellspun is a manufacturing company with a lot of emphasis on technology as well. And many of us must have seen this. Microsoft and KPMG announced a $12 billion deal 2 days ago. And I don't know if there are people from Microsoft and KPMG in the room, Rohin and others, but from what I've read, right, you're an auditor sitting with KPMG in India, and your job just changed because Microsoft, OpenAI, and KPMG tied up to how audit is going to happen. And when you were doing your chartered accountant, you never thought technology is ever going to come and touch you, right? So the pace at which things are changing is extremely crazy right now. And I think for all of us to kind of understand that is important, right? McKinsey did a very nice research report which said there are 4 areas where ChatGPT and generative AI will have the biggest impact. Software development. If you're a software developer, use it because your productivity goes up. Sales and marketing. So all content in sales and marketing can be generated better with generative AI. Research and development, and customer operations. If you're somewhere in a customer operations unit, a lot of that will get impacted by ChatGPT. Impacted is a polite way of saying jobs will get eliminated, jobs will change, right? Now, McKinsey did not say L&D and HR is going to change, but then McKinsey did not say audit at KPMG is going to change either 2 months ago, and now we have this $12 billion deal where 85,000 audit personnel at KPMG are possibly going to see the skills that they need change quite rapidly. In all of this, obviously for us to say, look, how do we take the power of ChatGPT into the learning experience, and how do we now personalize it for you, how do we make it interactive? Can we give you a tutor who's available 24/7 who can answer questions, not let you cheat, but still help you, use it in a good, ethical manner is what we are launching. And I know Ina and Vidisha have spoken about it a little bit, but both of them run excellent learning programs at their companies, and this is going to power that further ahead as well. So that's what we're seeing a little bit.
Interesting. Vidisha, one point from you that today integrated technology and learning solutions help to mine data, use the data for insights, and then pump up your learning in the organization. Can you connect the dots and tell me what kind of metrics you all are tapping for business outcome?
You know, like I was saying, that gone are the days when we're really looking at only usage and hours of learning. We're looking at that concepts like skill benchmarking, right? So if you have a platform, does it allow you to take a test on a certain skill? So for example, let's say digital transformation, and you want your entire organization to know or to find out where they stand, a platform should allow you to have the opportunity to benchmark employee skills. So that's definitely one. So we look at, you know, skill gap analysis. So if you've done a test before and got a number, you do the course, you do an intervention, and then you do a test later to actually see if you've made the skill journey. That's one large way that we are looking at measurement. The second thing that we're looking at is we're also having projects that are linked to the learning platform. So there are groups, let's say, in supply chain or in procurement, on commercial. We're assigning them certain learning properties and modalities, which they are then to apply on a certain live project, which they could be either pursuing or will pursue. And it has to have a change in the projection of, let's say, the numbers. At the end of the year, we have something like a Shark Tank, where people are to come back with innovative ideas and process improvement, change improvements from the manufacturing floor and other sectors of the industry within our organization. So that's another way to look at a metric, saying that are you able to use information that you're learning on a platform, use it to better processes, use it to innovate, use it to ideate, and come back and show that. And the third piece, I think, that we're looking at outcome based is really developing the top talent and creating a succession pipeline. So for people who are your high potential, you know, there is a separate learning path created for them. And we're seeing, we're doing like a capability competency benchmarking at the start of this intervention. And again, using technology and AI-based learning tools to see how they are progressing through that journey, and where their competencies can get enhanced, and how they have performed at the end of the journey. So as you see, it's evolved. It's different in terms of numbers and usage. It's very specific and personalized, and it's all linked to business outcome.
So, Ina, how are you using learning solutions for job-based learning pathways as well as career mobility? Because this is the ask today for HR and learning leaders.
Yes. So in Tata.com, our currency for development is skill, right? And what we call capability is skill at a certain proficiency. And that actually gels very well in the tech world, because that's how the certifications, tech certifications, etc. are also. So we've mirrored that internally. In terms of the effectiveness of any program or L&D, to answer your question, Pooja, there are two very key metrics that we track in a very robust way, apart from a lot of other ones. One is, of course, you know, how is it that the employees who go through the learning ecosystem, how are they able to progress in their careers and move into jobs which they aspire for, right? And like I mentioned, we've seen a 3 to 5% increase in that, and there's a whole ecosystem we've enabled through another AI-based platform for that. Second, of course, is how is it that our programs, and especially in our value-driven strategy, we have role-based academies is what we call it, role skill academies. We have them established for all our critical roles across our customer value chain. How are they contributing to the business outcomes? And one key differentiator that we have in the academies is, one, the content is very contextualized. So to give you an example, we have sales and product management, who are the critical roles in our organization. And sales teams are based globally. So the content that the India sales guys have vis-a-vis what they have in Europe is very different, because it caters to, you know, the market opportunity, the culture, everything, right? Vis-a-vis what the product managers experience. And all of this learning is actually not in the short form, it's in the long form. It's deep skilling, and it's linked to business impact metrics. So, you know, as we speak, you know, I have a meeting with my CEO later in the evening where I have to report to him that the sales program that we did, how is that in quarter one, we've just wound up quarter one, how has that impacted his revenue in OB numbers? So these are two critical ones. But apart from that, we measure learner experience, NPS, learner attention. We are looking at adaptive assessments. So there's a whole lot of other stuff that we measure.
Sorry for keeping you here. Raghav's closing thoughts. Let's sum the entire generative AI discussion on impact of learning.
Yeah, I think this is music to my ears because, learning leaders talking about business outcomes is exactly what we need. We say this informally at Coursera as well, skills pay the bills, and Inas talked about skills being the currency. So I think this makes a lot of sense. I do think it's a great time to be an L&D professional or an HR professional because, like Mr. Shiv Khera was saying, learning has become a priority. And the reason I say that is because learning was not a priority, and it was a case earlier as well. A lot of L&D managers and leaders might agree with this. A few years ago, I was in an event, and this L&D person said the burden of driving utilization of online programs. And because it was so hard to get people to learn, but I think it has become a priority for people, for CHROs, for CEOs, because you don't really have a choice, right? It is either learn or become irrelevant. So I do think it's a great time to be in L&D and HR because of the business outcome impact that these teams can have. And I think it's a challenging time as well, given how technology is changing. But like we've heard consistently through the morning, human skills are the ones that are super important.
So lastly, the ability of generative AI to create, to imagine, and to bring to life things that never existed before is nothing short of remarkable. With that, thank you so much for joining us for this panel discussion. Have a great day. Thank you. Thank you, dear panel.